Thank you for joining us for JuliaCon, the podcast. I am so sorry I missed yesterday's episode. I did watch the very first few minutes of it. It's so good. I really recommend watching it. And Nathan has raised the bar so high for intros. I was really stressed out about doing the intro today because he did a really great intro yesterday. My name is Huda, and I will be your host today. Joining me are Nathan and Keno.
Hi.
So for today, we have a really great, amazing lineup for our interviews. We have Mary McGrath, we have Tanmay, Bakshi, and Matt Brzezinski. And we also have someone for the Say Hi segment, and we are really excited to have them with us for this episode. Today was the first day of JuliaCon. I know we've been doing this for a couple days already, but today is the first official day, and there were really amazing talks and events that went on today. Actually, Nathan, there will be a segment about that later. Okay, so getting started, we have a lot of things for today's episode. So we will start off with the Say Hi segment, and we will bring Azamat with us here to this interview. Azamat, you can reveal yourself. Hi.
Hello, guys. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You?
I'm good.
Yes,
so Azamat, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah,
no, I was just gonna ask you, first of all, is this what number JuliaCon is this for you?
So I haven't attended in person before, but I've been watching the live streams and videos like the previous years since like 2015. I've been following the conferences. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Well,
so
hopefully next year.
Berkeley, in MIT, I believe there was one in Chicago. Yeah.
Wow.
I
That's amazing. Hopefully next year you can join us, and all of us will join in Lisbon. Well, unofficially yet. We agreed that it's not really. We don't know if it's in Lisbon, right?
Yeah. I really hope. Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and how do you use Julia, and how has Julia shown up in your work and career?
Yeah. So I'm an applied mathematician working based in Toronto, working here in a startup as a machine learning engineer. First, I've been using Julia since 2015. At the time, I was an undergrad student. I started using it for my summer research project, and I got basically hooked for it for all the reasons that most of us got hooked, basically speed and usability and all the goodies. And I've been using it ever since, and I really enjoy it. Like I follow the conversations on Discourse, Slack, and I'm really happy to meet you guys in person, like Ken or Nathan, Huda. I know you're like terrific guys in terms of your skills and Julia contributions. So yeah, really, really nice to meet you, everyone.
Nice to meet you.
And
we're very happy to have you.
Yeah, sure. In my current job, I'm mostly using Python just because of all the legacy projects, but we're slowly introducing Julia as well. Specifically, have a project where we're doing linear optimization, and that's where I'm kind of introducing the jump library. Because it's just so there is no comparison like to say like other libraries in say Python or MATLAB, whatever. Like the closest one would be kind of AMP, which I used as well, but it's a commercial and it's a kind of separate language. So yeah, JAMP and Julia in general is really terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Yes, JUMP is a very powerful package. I actually agree. Yeah. So Azamat, our interview with you is about to end. It was amazing. Cool. It was great to have you. If there's any other final words, are you giving any talks, or do you have a favorite talk, or do you have any final things you want to tell us?
Yeah, so I guess I've been back in Kazakhstan in my country. So I gave a few workshops. I didn't like popularize them in Discourse or anywhere, but I tried to kind of create kind of a small community there. And I guess when you look at recently someone posted a map of Julia registrations or something. There was like 3 small dots in Kazakhstan, from Kazakhstan. So I'm pretty sure that was like my small community there. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes, we'd love to hear about that. If you want to share any news about that, if you have pictures or any updates about those workshops you gave, we would love to hear more about them. I think you can post on Discourse or on the community channel in Slack. We'd love to see them. That's amazing. Yeah. So thank you for all of your work on Julia, and
it was nice to meet you.
It was likewise very nice to meet you, and hopefully we'll meet you in person in the future.
Yeah, guys. All right.
Thank you, Azamat.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
And with that, we will move to Keno, where he is going to take us and give us some, show us some pictures from previous JuliaCons, I think.
That's exactly right. We've had some submissions of pictures from various people in the community. If you don't know, you can submit pictures and have them shown on the podcast. And the link to that form will be in the description below, as Nathan would say. And we've had 2 submissions for today's episode. So this first picture is from Jeff. You may remember him talking about how much he liked the boats at JuliaCon. So this is the boat from last year in Baltimore Harbor. The top deck of the boat had, I think, 3 or 4 levels. So the top level of the boat, where we had the party at JuliaCon last year. And a quick side note, follow-up from yesterday, I suggested we should have a boat in gather.town, and in fact, there now is a boat in gather.town. So not to miss out, JuliaCon 2020 does also have a boat.
Many thanks to Ian Butterworth, who's been managing the gather.town, who heard this podcast and made it happen. So many thanks.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you to all our listeners who are so active and interacting. Okay, and the second picture is from submitted by Elliot Saba from JuliaCon 2018, where apparently somebody vandalized one of the whiteboards. And for those of you listening, the whiteboard says "Julia sucks, Fortran for life." All right, and with that, back to Nathan for an update on the conference.
Yeah, so we promised yesterday to wander gather.town during the gather.town social time that was held today. And I did just that very thing. Collected a bunch of gather.town random interviews, hellos from various people in the community, which was really nice. Thanks to those of you who put up with me pestering you for interviews, and also everybody who put up with me doing it twice because the video quality was really bad. And so still some of these interviews are somewhat poor video quality. My apologies. It's kind of half and half, good and bad here. But so we're just going to play this quick segment of me wandering around and talking to people in the community. Do you want to do a quick hello and a brief introduction and just a couple 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and then we can do some questions? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So long story short, I'm Thibaut. I've been using Julia since Julia 0.4, so quite a long time. Yeah, I'm now using it quite a lot, and even professionally when I can. My area is more machine learning, and yeah, I've been involved in machine learning for Julia, so MLJ and Franklin, the website generator, and yeah, that's about it.
That's
Be
awesome.
happy Julia user.
Are you having an okay time on this online conference?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm struggling to pick between the different choices and find my way around these gathered towns. But
these are the same problems you have even in a real conference, trying to pick which talk to attend.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Is this your first JuliaCon?
Yeah,
that's
it
awesome.
is. I wanted to come to the previous one, and then it didn't work out with the timing.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, yeah.
But
I was really hoping to attend this one in, live.
Me too.
But, yeah.
Me too. I know, we all are. But it's great that you could still come. That's wonderful. Can you give like a 30-second pitch for Franklin for those who don't know?
Yeah, so Franklin is a static website generator, a bit like Jekyll and Hugo, except that it's all in Julia. And of course, it's less feature complete because, it's a lot younger. But I guess it's focused around making it easy to for people to write Julia code to define a bunch of pages. So that allows you to do a lot of things. So it's probably it should be. Probably the punchline is that it's like a hackable static site generator. And it covers some of what Weave does in that you can run Julia code on your web pages, and which makes it really nice for if you want to write a tutorials website, for instance, where you show Julia code and everything is executed when you deploy the website.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a neat project. It's worth check it out if you haven't seen it already. I think both Franklin and Weave are really cool projects.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And now the main Julia website is using Franklin, which is like pretty fun.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, you should definitely highlight that. So the julialang.org is built with Franklin.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. And it's a very professional looking, nice website. So. Yeah,
well, actually, the looks is always, it's the part that people, of course, would see first, but it's the least interesting part to develop in a way, because you can use frameworks which do most of the CSS for you, and of course, I mean, it still requires a fair bit of skills to get it right, and most of the design was done before I joined and before I migrated the backend to Franklin. So yeah, that's more like cheers to other people who were involved in that.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I'm glad it worked out.
So there's like Julia being generated, like there's like Julia examples and things on the website that those parts are coming through Franklin.
Yeah, and then there is like, I think at least one, and then there are small things which would probably look invisible but are very convenient for maintainers. So for instance, when a new Julia version gets released, the web page with all of the instructions indicating what version to download and all of that is kind of automatically updated.
That's really nice.
So it makes it a lot easier to maintain stuff rather than having to type 1.4.3 everywhere.
That's because you can just write standard Julia.
1.5 right now.
Yeah, exactly. So you're saying because you can write standard Julia for these rules. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's nice.
Yeah, that's right. There's like a bunch of tricks like this that just make it easier to do, to maintain whatever is repeated on the website. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think that's all the time that we have, but I really appreciate you coming on.
Hi, my name is Renan. I'm from Brazil, and I work with transportation problems, mostly optimization. And I never used Julia, actually, but I'm looking for it. I'm now using Java and a little bit of Python for prototypes. So my idea right now is to swipe Python and Julia. So
yeah,
it's going to be cool.
And our hope, the belief that we all have here is that you'll find you won't even need to go back to Java, because your prototype in Julia can also become your production system, because it'll be just as fast, or you'll have the ability to make it just as fast. And that might be a lot of fun. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, I'm Steffen I'm studying in Vienna for my math PhD, and I'm using Julia since 1 year, and the last year was really nice. Less linker errors and more focus on learning programming in a good way. So yeah, and I really love the community here. Like, so many of the famous programmers also are reachable. So that really amazed me when Chris answered to my first pull request.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the JuliaCon is very great to learn.
Agreed. That's really nice. We're so glad to have you. Is this your first JuliaCon that you've been to?
Yes, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming. It's so nice to meet you, and we'll keep seeing you around online, I'm sure.
Sure. So I'm actually my name is Barun Das, and I'm a newcomer to Julia. I started programming with it last month. I am
awesome.
currently a graduate student at UT Austin for petroleum engineering.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. What got you into Julia?
Yeah, thank you.
What got you into Julia?
So I am currently programming in C++, and it's a very tough language to use. So I want to try converting some of my programs to Julia to make things more efficient.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, you're in the right place. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, greetings everybody. I'm Johan van Kerkhoven from right now almost nighttime Mechelen, Belgium to be precise. I know there are a lot of Mechelens in the world, but it's the one and only. Yeah, I've been a Julia user almost for 4 years now, thanks to one of my colleagues, Ben Lauwers. Work for the Royal Military Academy of Belgium. So yeah. And I'm having a lot of fun with Julia and getting way too distracted by the stuff around my house to pay a lot of attention to the conference, sadly.
No, understandable.
Yeah, there's always something going up or stuff like that.
Yes, very much understood. It's the hard thing about a conference from home.
Yeah, indeed.
But well, anyway, we're glad that you could join us online, and thank you for taking the time to say hello.
No problem. Everybody enjoy yourselves.
Thank you. Yeah, so thanks again to everybody who was interviewed. It was really a lot of fun. I had a great time. And now we just wanted to recap some other things that happened today. Today was, of course, the first day of talks at JuliaCon. We had the first keynote speaker this morning. And there are, of course, 2 more days. Today is Wednesday. When we're recording anyway, today is Wednesday the 29th, and there will be more talks on Thursday and Friday. So today we heard from a whole bunch of people, including the keynote speaker, Karen Wilcox, which was really enjoyable, talking about scientific machine learning. And there have been a couple talks already throughout JuliaCon about scientific machine learning, so it's really cool to see these what kinds of topics are coming up this year more than previous years. So. And tomorrow's keynote will be at the same time. So please check that out as well from Juan Pablo talking. Oh, actually, I don't know what his keynote is about. It doesn't say. Check out tomorrow the keynote from Juan Pablo at the same time. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you around. And now we're going to jump to Kenno, who's going to bring us to our interviews with our guests for today.
Absolutely. And before we do that, quick note, we do now have officially 10,000 registrations as of the first day of the conference. So thank you to everyone who did a last-minute marketing push yesterday. I know there was like 9,800 registration, and people just went out and tweeted and got the word out to push us over the 10,000 number. So good job, everyone, and welcome to all 10,000 of you to JuliaCon with a podcast. With a sideshow. Go watch the talks. All right, and with that, to our first interview, we're very happy to have with us Tanmay Bakshi, who is the author of Tanmay Teaches Julia, an introductory Julia book for all ages, I believe. Mm-hmm. Tanmay, tell us how old you are right now.
Sure. Hi, I'm 16 years old.
You're 16. That is the age that I started working on Julia. So. One thing that I find so cool about the Julia community is just how many young people and people of all ages are involved in the community. So why don't you tell us how you got started with Julia and what made you write this book?
Sure. So, I mean, I got involved with the Julia community in a couple of different ways. And if you take a look at what I love doing, there's really 2 main parts to it. So the first one is, of course, I love working with technology and building new tech. And on the other side of it, there's also that I love taking that tech and making it so that more people can actually work with it and more people can build it themselves. And both of those actually led me to Julia in a couple of different ways. For example, as I was building technology, a pretty interesting story here is around last year, I started working on a new project with IBM actually on the DB2 code base. And essentially the point of that project was, can we use machine learning technology to help developers working on the DB2 code base in order to allow them to test their code more effectively? So previously it was pretty inefficient. Can we somehow make it so that you can test code modifications or additions to like a 30 million line code base in a more effective way? There were a couple of different sort of aspects to that. One of them was developing compiler tooling to actually enable us to instrument DB2 code on a variety of different platforms really, really fast. But then at the same time, there was also, how can we actually implement the machine learning algorithms to analyze that data? And it turned out that, first of all, the compiler tooling that I developed got me really, weirdly fascinated about the world of compilers. And I was sort of hooked to learning more about the world of compiler tech. That led me to Julia in a way, right? So seeing how the Julia compiler enables different technologies like machine learning to sort of exist within the language itself. But then also on the other end, the machine learning algorithms that we required for the use case were pretty exotic, right? So things like recursive neural networks for analyzing graphs and things like this. And implementing those in other libraries like TensorFlow is notoriously difficult. And so as with a lot of other things, it sort of boiled down to, it was fundamentally a lot simpler and faster for us to code those algorithms in Julia than it would have been in essentially any other framework. So that sort of led me to the world of Julia in one way, and that continued to fascinate me for a very long time. Does to this day. That's why I like to sort of call it my favorite programming language for all things machine learning, scientific computing, that kind of thing. And on the other end, around making tech more accessible, I started to notice that a lot of beginners would learn a language like Python because of the fact that they don't need to think very much about the logic of what's going on behind the instructions they give the language, right? All they got to do is tell it what they want, and usually things end up working. They might not be fast, it might not work the way you expect necessarily, but it usually works. And that kind of annoyed me, because if you're learning a language like Python, and if that is your first language, if that's what you plan on coding in, that's not particularly great for your future. That's not particularly great for what you're going to continue to do, in the industry, right? You're going to be working with advanced technology like, again, the one that I primarily work with, machine learning. And I wanted to make it so that, people had a better language to start off with. Before I found Julia, actually the first sort of set or programming language meant for this that I found was Swift for TensorFlow. And I was like, this is a lot better, right, than the Python ecosystem that we've had for so much time. It allows you to interoperate with Python, right? You've got the Swift syntax, which is definitely still easy, right? It's not difficult. But at the same time, you have machine learning capabilities built right into the compiler. And then when I found Julia, that was sort of like the icing on top, where it's like, now it's as simple as Python too. So now we can introduce this to kids, without having them being afraid of Swift syntax, and still they can be ready to implement next generation technologies once they've learned the language. And so that's why, as you mentioned, I wrote my book. So that's called Tanmay Teaches Julia. As a matter of fact, I had actually started the new Tanmay Teaches series with McGrath and decided that it would be a good idea for Julia to be the first language that we cover in the series. So I thought, what better way to start off the series than with Julia? Towards the end, I actually do show off a couple of different machine learning examples as well. And it just goes to show how machine learning can be so simple in a language like Julia, even for something a little bit more complex like Google Deep Dream, where you actually have to do that gradient calculation and use that to modify images. That you can implement it in a kid's book, and so that's why I love the world of Julia. I'm fascinated by compilers. I love working on the back ends for different languages. I feel like it's a very underrated field, and we should pay more attention to it. It's fast. It's great for the different use cases that I have, like for example, analyzing 100 or tens of millions of lines of code, and stack traces that we billions of calls, and at the same time it's amazing for beginners to be able to learn with, and that's why I love Julia so much.
What other books will there be in your series? Is there going to be a Tanmay Teaches compiler? technology book for kids?
I am actually currently working on a couple of different new books under the Tanmay Jesus series. One of them is going to be on compilers.
Really?
As a matter of fact, the next two books, the next one book that's currently planned is around the Go language, after which I am currently working on a book around, LLVM and compilers, so that should be fun. As a matter of fact, actually, one more thing that I noticed is, as I've been going to a couple of different conferences, like for example, I was doing a few workshops with students in Canada. I did a workshop at a conference. We are developers in Vienna. And at a lot of these conferences, whenever I would do these workshops and I would talk about, the world of Julia and the different things that it enables you to do, the fact that everybody at those workshops, regardless of their age or regardless of their background, was able to sort of just get the way Julia syntax works, but at the same time, be able to code in a language that understands them enough to be able to optimize their code well, that really, I loved that, right? Because personally, as I've been introducing people to these languages, Julia makes my work a lot easier too, because now I can actually have people understand a language that's good for them. So it really fit well.
Yeah, wonderful. No, I love the work that you're doing, because often you hear kids' age is too young to actually teach them the real tools. But I just think that's complete nonsense, because I got started. I think my first programming book was called Game Development for Kids with C++, right? So it was actually here's a proper game engine, here's C++, and simple examples, and written in a very accessible way. But still, kids can totally understand programming. I mean, absolutely. Fundamentally, there's nothing hard about it. So I'm so happy that you're taking that approach and you're writing those books to give people and kids the opportunity to learn something like this. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Of course. I mean, it's really what I'm passionate about. I mean, as you mentioned, bringing resources like Julia to really everybody. Kids definitely being sort of that main age group. I mean, you mentioned that the Julia community is pretty young. That's definitely a plus. I feel like one of the main reasons for that is because kids getting into the world of technology are looking for languages like Julia that are at the same time not just ready for the future, but in fact have a lot of scope for growth in the future, right? Like Julia, while at the same time being open source, right? At the same time being easy to learn. And I feel like all of this really compounds down to a great experience for everybody to learn Julia. As a matter of fact, as I was working on this book, I had gotten in touch with Viral Shah, because I thought it would be really fun if I would get a foreword for the book from Viral, and so I reached out to him. He's been incredibly supportive. It's great to see that people like Viral, leaders in this technology, are sort of spearheading the initiative of Julia, and so it's been really great to work with the community.
Yeah, wonderful. So we're coming up on time, but anything else you wanna say to the community, or say about Julia, about JuliaCon? Anything else on your mind?
Well, really, I would say that, first of all, this is my first JuliaCon, and so I'm really excited to take a look at the different sessions. I hope I can actually attend in person next year. Who knows, maybe hold
so
a
do
couple
we.
of work, yeah. Hopefully soon. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be fun. I'm going to be taking a look at a lot of the different sessions, seeing what's new in the world of Julia, and I can't wait to see where the Julia community progresses from here. And I'm certain there's a lot of scope for growth. And a lot of different times I talk about Julia, I almost say it's kind of like ahead of its time, right? It's so futuristic that a lot of people don't completely understand exactly how it's useful. And so I feel like in the future we're going to start to see a lot more adoption for this language, and can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tanmay, and impressive work, and I was very impressed with you and your ability to both do technical work at that age and speak so well at that age, because I certainly while I thought of myself as being pretty good technically, I'm not sure I could have done what you do and go out and teach people and represent technology and be a leader in this way. So I'm very impressed, and thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and yeah, hopefully I can be here again next year.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, and with that, Nathan, do you want to do our second interview?
Awesome, thanks. Hey, okay, so next we have Mary McGrath. So Mary, do you want to hop on in?
Hey.
Hi, Mary. So fun fact for everyone in the audience, Mary and I are probably less than 2 miles apart right now, though we are...
I absconded.
You absconded?
I'm in rural Rhode Island, so we're like 4 miles away.
But for those listening,
Rhode Island is big enough.
Yeah, for those who don't live in the U.S. or just don't know this, Rhode Island is the smallest state in the United States, so she can't be very far away.
No.
Where are you?
40 miles? It's not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. 40 miles. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, Mary. Mary is a research software engineer at Brown University's Center for Computation and Visualization. Do you want to just maybe introduce yourself? And yeah, why don't you start? Just introduce yourself.
So as Nathan said, I'm a research software engineer with Brown Center for Computation and Visualization. We kind of work with researchers all over the university on whatever problems they have. Unfortunately, most of the time that's not Julia, but sometimes it is, and I heavily encourage them to make it Julia, which is fun for me. But yeah, so I work on anything from databases to mathematical modeling to like web and like visualization. So very, very full stack on that regards. I came to Julia in 2018. Basically, when I took the job at Brown, the original group I was working with said, we're a Julia shop, so you need to learn Julia. And I was like, okay. Never heard of it, but I like learning, so why not? And I really enjoy kind of the process of learning Julia. I feel like I learned a lot about computer science by learning Julia and like reading through all of the sections of the documentation piecemeal. Whereas like when you start with a language like Python or something, you can kind of get away with not knowing much. And they don't necessarily encourage you in the same way to learn things. But yeah, in my prior life, I was a consultant. So I've also kind of just been growing my technical skills a lot more deeply over the past few years.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I think it partly maybe just comes from the like very open nature and the like the collaborative nature of the community or something. But the documentation is very much, and I think maybe it also something to do with language. But I agree, the documentation is very like go get your wrench and understand why it works this way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also because almost all Julia packages are written in pure Julia, it's a lot easier to just start diving into the source code and be like, what's happening here? Or like, because especially 2 years ago, it was a less mature language than it is now, things wouldn't always work. So being like, oh, why is this broken? And then going into the source code and reading all these people's code and how they did stuff. I learned a lot just by that. Whereas often in other languages, you quickly hit a wall where now you're often like C or C++ land. And it's just an interface.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What packages do you like? So you do data work, you said, with databases and understanding data. What sorts of like Julia packages are you using day to day, and what's your
day to day? I like to use Vega Lite and data frames in my SQL quite a bit. That's a common stack I end up with. I also really like that Vega Lite is a grammar of graphics. So we have a great Julia package for it. And also for Vega, David Antoff has done a ton of work over the past year to kind of expand that world. But underlying is a lot of JavaScript. So then when I move to the web, I can just kind of take all of this work I did in Julia and just move it over pretty seamlessly without having to like rethink all of my visualization, which is awesome. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't do tons of day-to-day Julia, like real development. So it's a lot of like quick calculator work or like, let me connect to this database and grab some data and then move on, as opposed to like doing deeper work.
But it's really nice for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your like JavaScript front end work look like? What are you doing in the JavaScript world?
We at CCV had a long debate, and we decided to be a Vue shop. That was our compromise framework. But mostly a lot of researchers have these really kind of great ideas and they do all this great work on the back end and they need to present it to the world and they're like, oh, now what do we do? So a lot of it is kind of taking all this data science and data work and kind of creating front ends to make that accessible to other people. So whether that's kind of Viz to explore data or to expose like APIs, which sometimes we do right in Julia, so that people can get at that good work that the researchers are doing.
It's really cool. Can you talk a bit? I know you did a page for JuliaCon both this year and last year. Can you talk about that page that you gave a talk about last year? It was really cool.
Oh, the Explore Talks page. Yeah. So last year I did a lightning talk on kind of moving from visualization from Julia to the web with Vega Lite and kind of a little bit of the full stack of going through like web scraping to a little bit of exploration of data and how you actually can turn that into like interactive visualization and then even just quickly deploy that to the web because that step is so easy with Vega Lite. I want to show that off. And then this year when we were doing the web app, I was like, well, I can just update that again because I kind of ended up making a little word cloud and like a version of the calendar that kind of just shows off all the talks that are happening, partly because I think the pre-talks UX and UI is really hard to navigate at times. That's how I'm going to put that.
Yeah, so for those of you following along, if you're at the live.juliacon.org, our web app, up in the top right corner there's this Explore Talks build, and that's based on the work that Mary presented last year at JuliaCon. She was just talking about now. So definitely recommend you check it out. It's a really fun way to find talks that you might be interested in. Was there anything that surprised you about this year's word cloud, like how it was different than last year's?
Package was way more prominent this year than last year. So maybe everyone's just packaging their work, or I don't know what changed, but last year that was like a small word, like people mentioned it, but now it's like every time you load it, it's like package.
Yeah, it's the biggest one that I see right here, yeah.
Which isn't the most exciting word, but it is nice to see that people are, you know, putting their code into packages to make it available for the community easily.
That's really neat. I also wanted to ask about, so you're, I think, in this really interesting and new role, or it was new to me, and I think it's like maybe newish, of this data, the research software engineer that I think is this like model being piloted in a lot of universities. Can you talk more about that role and expand on?
Yeah. So research software engineers are kind of people who tend to have a bit more kind of academic training than most. Like I'm actually one of the only people in my group who doesn't have an advanced degree, but almost everyone has a PhD or a master's in something sciencey. We kind of work with researchers to help them write better software and to kind of package their software to make it open source and reproducible. Reproducibility is a big part of what we do because it's very easy for, you know, a grad student in a lab to write some R script that works for them, but then how do you turn that into actual science that other people can use? So some of that is writing packages, some of that is just bringing good practices to researchers. But it was at JuliaCon in 2018, there was a talk by Michael, I'm forgetting his last name, about kind of research software engineering in the UK. And I was sitting there with a couple of my colleagues from Brown, and we were like, wait, this is what we do.
Yeah.
So we actually introduced research software engineer as a track within our data science practice as a result of JuliaCon 2018 and seeing that talk. So the whole reason I'm a research software engineer is because of JuliaCon.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I saw that talk too before I met you all, and then I met you all, and I was like, oh my God, this is what that talk was about. And yeah, it's so neat. What is it like sort of being the liaison between the software engineers and the academic labs? Like, are there any unique benefits or challenges that come up from that? Not to put anybody out on the spot or anything, but
no, I mean, mostly it's quite rewarding because you're kind of taking science and like making it better for the most part, or kind of there's also a big teaching role into it because we work with a lot of kind of grad students or staff within labs who maybe aren't as technical. So also like passing on like best practices and setting them up so they can do continuous integration and write tests and like deploy things. So there's a big teaching role to that, which is really quite fun. The challenge is that you are often working with people who don't have as much of an appreciation for kind of the technical side of things. And sometimes you would like to prioritize something, but they don't really see the benefit of doing that in the short term. So sometimes you don't get to go down all those rabbit holes. And because we're collaborating with a lot of different labs that have their own kind of stacks and everything, we often are a little bit more bound to working with the languages that they have in place as opposed to kind of doing things how we would have from scratch. So I do a lot of Python and MATLAB and the occasional R, but trying to avoid R. I'm going to be honest.
That makes a lot of sense. That's cool. And sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. I got a text message that distracted me as you were talking at the end there. Yes, that is amazing.
Outside of this podcast bubble.
What'd you say? Yes, this is the only. This is where I live. I live in this podcast. I don't exist. Yes, exactly. No, and then I was thinking about R, and I was thinking about Jacob's talk about how we had with the very first interview we did, and how he said that he escaped from R to here, and how he was so happy. And
R just doesn't encourage many good practices in software engineering. Like, they don't encourage you to write functions. They give you a great IDE, which RStudio really is great, but it means that you have no idea how to function outside of that. And then like the package management is crazy. You just people just install whatever, and they're like, here's my session info, go for it. So, what?
That's why package is the most important word at this year's JuliaCon.
Yeah.
That's great, Mary. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's we're basically at time here. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover, or any talks that you're interested in attending this year?
I will say Jacob's microservices talk, workshop from Saturday was like amazing. He covered so much ground in 3.5 hours. It was, I don't know how he did that. But it really kind of brought together a lot of concepts from like all across Julia, and like making sure understanding web step. And I'm also just very excited that exists as an example forever forward, because sometimes approaching these things, the documentation has really great technical stuff, but sometimes the getting started is a little bit like, wait, I just want to make this, how do I do that? But no. And then I actually need to look more ahead at the schedule. I've been running around doing like organizing stuff, and I sometimes forget to actually watch the talks.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't even. I should have mentioned that Mary was one of the like core organizing team for this year's conference. I'm sorry, I didn't even mention that at the beginning. Do you want to say a bit about what it's been like to organize this conference? Thank you for stepping up and being one of those volunteers.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We spent kind of a fair amount of time trying to figure out like, what do we want this to look like? Because once we move online, we really remove a lot of the constraints of time at all. So we even floated like, do we even want to just have like a month of Julia where there's just a lot of talks? We want to create like a one-day event, because 3 days is kind of a lot of talks in a virtual format. It's kind of harder to hold people's attention for that long. We thought a lot about platform, and one of the things we really decided is we wanted to make sure we got a bit of the sense of community that you get at a normal JuliaCon, which is kind of why we went with Discord as the platform, even though it's not perfect. None of the platforms we really looked at were perfect. So kind of getting a way for people to interact and get that feel of wandering around between the voice channels and get to use their voice, but also have the text. And it's been, I had barely used Discord before this, and now, you know, Avik and all of his great wisdom made me an admin on a server. So now I'm just like messing around all the time being like, oh, I need to make this role, and I need to do this thing and make this channel and all this stuff. And like, oh, someone can't do a thing. I need to go look into that. So it's been a learning experience, but I think today went shockingly well. There weren't any major technical issues. The live session like went, which was always nerve-wracking, and everything kind of released on time. A few small glitches, but overall, I'm pretty excited with how it went. And the workshops too were well attended and well received.
Yeah, thank you for all your work on this. I think this has been such a challenge, and we're all really happy at how well it's been coming out.
Happy to.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Okay, thanks, Mary. And now we're going to hand it over to Huda for the last interview for today.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for this great interview with Mary. And I have to say, like, this JuliaCon's organization has been amazing. Like, hats off to everyone on the organizing committee. They've been doing a really great job, given that the conference is online, but still, like, we've been receiving a lot of great feedback. Really hats off to everyone. So with that, we will move to the next guest on our show today. Matt Brzezinski. Matt, do you want to come on? Hi, Matt.
Hello.
So you said I nailed.
You nailed my last name.
Oh, okay. So
pronouncing it.
Okay, that's good. I think I saw your message after I said it, so I wasn't sure what was the comment about. That's why. So how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So just for everyone watching, Matt is actually, you're one of the maintainers of AWS.jl. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm currently rewriting it.
Rewriting it. That's a big task. Do you want to tell us about how you're going about rewriting the package?
For sure. So right now there's two kind of main packages for AWS interfacing. There's AWS Core, which does kind of the lower level stuff. You need to know, first off, like what service you're going to use on AWS. For instance, say S3, and say you want to get like all the objects in a bucket. You need to know that you got to perform a GET request and what the endpoint is. So it's not very user friendly, but if you know what you're doing, you can kind of get by. And the other package is AWS SDK, which is a lot of higher level functions. So all you need to know, you don't need to know what the request type is or what the endpoint is, just what the name of it is. So you do like AWS SDK .s3 list buckets or list objects or something like that. And then you pass your arguments in there, which is also good, but then you don't know for maybe some more complex requests, what the required parameters are, what the optional parameters are. So in that sense, it's also not really that user-friendly. Also, the updating modules for it is not working and hasn't been updated in a long time. So automating that is a really big deal. So as I'm currently rewriting it in AWS.jl and kind of stealing that name for a package and kind of combining these two packages together to make a super user-friendly high-level package, as well as low-level requests, and being able to update these every single day so that everyone always has the latest AWS services and the latest functions for service when they get changed.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's
very promising.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing process for the last, I'd say, 6 months or so.
Cool, nice. I remembered as you were talking about how like this was originally that you're mentioning the two packages, and now you're stealing the name and rewriting AWS.jl. I think I remember the example that Kano came up with the other day about CXX wrap, where basically there were like earlier versions of similar packages, but like now there's a new package. And I think this pattern happens a lot with some of the packages, and they just like keep evolving, and that's a promising thing. That's a good thing where things are evolving in some way. So going back to your work, let's talk a little bit about your background. So you work at NVINIA, right? NVINIA is one of the sponsors of the conference too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about your work at NVINIA?
Yeah, for sure. So this also kind of ties into how I got into Julia, but a year ago, maybe a week ago, I started using Julia for the first time. I joined NVINIA, and
a year ago.
So I wrote Hello World. Yeah.
Wow.
So I wrote my first Hello World there, and I think I updated 1 or 2 packages from Julia 0.7 to 1.0. And then JuliaCon 2019 happened. So I went out to Baltimore with all my new coworkers and got to meet a few people there and kind of get involved in the language a lot. And it was a really interesting experience to kind of learn a new language just by going to the largest or like one of the bigger conferences for it. So that was really cool. And then ever since, I've just been kind of dabbling in our own personal stuff in NVIDIA work, and then kind of in the open source community with Julia Cloud mainly, as well as a few other packages.
Wow. So I think that's a very inspirational story that you actually really just learned about Julia just a year ago, and now you're rewriting one really a promising package. So maybe do you have any words for anyone maybe listening now and maybe just getting started in Julia? Do you think there's still is there a lot of space to possibly grow in Julia and like maybe aspects of Julia to work on? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, actually, I think Julia is like in this perfect middle ground where it's established quite a bit and it has like a nice concrete user base. But there's still like a lot of packages that need to be updated because they're kind of old, or new things that can be built out. I feel like we're a small enough community where you can kind of have these opportunities to make these things and learn. And everyone is super friendly. Like every single person I've talked to on Slack or in person at last year's JuliaCon has just been like outstanding. Like it's been easily the most welcoming community that I've been a part of. So I'd say
awesome.
For everyone who's like new to Julia, find some packages or things that you're interested in, and just message the creators or the maintainers of it. And I'm sure they'd be happy to kind of help you get started with it and contribute to it as well.
Yeah, I second that. Yeah. So aside from AWS.jl, is there, do you use Julia for any other projects, or not necessarily, like maybe personal projects, or maybe within, I don't know, if you're working on something that another package you're curious about or anything like that?
So I don't have too many personal projects anymore. Back in my university days, I'd kind of blow off my assignments to be creative and make my own stuff. But nowadays it's just kind of contributing to the Julia community. But outside of that, HTTP.jl is something that is interesting to me. Also, retry.jl is something that I'm going to be working on updating because it hasn't been touched in a while, as well as some of the JSON packages.
Nice. They all fit in a very similar bundle.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, kind of like all the web and cloud stuff is kind of my go-to.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds awesome. Yeah. So this, you said, is your second JuliaCon.
Yeah.
Have you attended any of the talks today or any of the workshops over the past few days, or are you looking forward to any of the talks or anything in this JuliaCon?
Once again, Jacob Quinn's workshop kind of stuck out to me. It's still mind-blowing how much stuff he got through in the short amount of time, but it was really interesting.
I think Jacob is on the live stream, so hi, Jacob. Shout out to Jacob.
Yeah, that was really good. At a few companies ago that I used to work at, we did lots of microservices, and I kind of forgot about that. So it was interesting to see how microservices are implemented in Julia. And going forward, I'm really looking towards the VS Code for Julia development talk. I believe that's tomorrow or Friday, as I just started using VS Code last week. So it's exciting to see all the new stuff coming out for that.
Awesome. Actually, VS Code has been mentioned on this podcast. Maybe this is like number 10 or so. Just a lot, like multiple people mentioned when we asked them about what is their software, like what software they use or what IDE they use. A lot of people mentioned VS Code. So what's the reason you're starting to use VS Code? Is there a specific reason, or everyone seems to be using it these days?
So I was originally using Sublime, but it didn't have enough features for me. So I got a PyCharm license with the Julia plugin for that. However, that plugin's not really maintained as much. So then I decided, why not try VS Code? A lot of people use it. And I saw that there was a talk coming up for it at this JuliaCon. So I figured I might as well just kind of start dabbling in that and learn the layout of it. So it's been exciting.
Cool. So Matt, we are actually starting to run out of time. Do you have any last minute thoughts or like anything you want to share with everyone watching, who's gonna watch the edited version? Anything you want to say, really?
I hope everyone has a great JuliaCon. I hope next year we can do this in person and see each other. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We hope to be there too as well. Like everyone hopes to be physically present in the same space. We actually did come up with a better idea for next JuliaCon. Maybe pre-record all the videos and then just go to JuliaCon and hang out. I think that was James Fairbanks' idea.
Yeah, he suggested that. Matt, I also wanted to personally thank you for all your help on getting the AWS packages fixed when I did the -- bug report option for Julia 1.5. Was in a bit of a time crunch to get that done, and things kept breaking. So you stepped up and fixed AWS S3 for me. So I was very thankful. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I was happy to help.
And it works now. So that's a bonus. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Okay, goodbye, Matt. Thank you for joining us today. So for now, we are just about to wrap up. We are a little maybe over time even. Thanks everyone who tuned in to the live stream. Thanks to everyone who is watching the edited version. I hope you're enjoying these episodes. Please fill the survey down below. We're receiving a lot of good feedback. We're actually bringing most of our guests actually from the feedback form that you're posting. So make sure to suggest guests to bring on, or comments, or even topics to talk about in the show. Thanks again for joining us. That's it for today. See you tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, Jacob just said probably my favorite episode yet. Great stuff.
Oh, that's
thanks,
awesome.
Jacob.
Well, he got shouted out like 3 times.
Yeah.
I feel like he's a little bit biased here.